Welcome to PreZence with Cindy Urrutia, Ph.D., the go-to podcast to listen, learn, grow, and create greater levels of presence in your professional and personal life. I'm your host, Cindy. Hello, this is Cindy, and I'm excited for our guest today, Dr. Peter Robertson, who is joining us from the Central Valley of California, Fresno. Before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Dr. Robertson. Dr. Robertson, who likes to be known as he, his, and his, has been referred to as a change maker on behalf of Fresno's disenfranchised and marginalized communities. A four-time graduate of Fresno State, the genesis of his activism was fostered as an undergraduate 35 years ago. As a result, for the past 2 decades, he has worked for the Fresno State Alumni Association, where he has been able to tie in his advocacy. Peter, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I am so honored that you were going to talk to me today. It's been a long day, and this right now is the highlight of my day. So thank you for reaching out to me and making me feel welcome in our virtual space.
Thank you. And I'm equally honored that you are here. So, Peter, I read some snippets of your bio, but it's a lot more richer than that. And as was mentioned, you do a lot of advocacy work. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I don't know how far back do you want me to start?
Wherever you'd like.
I think one of my personal and professional goals is to help create a sense of belonging for the students that we serve on campus. I work at Fresno State. We have about 24,000 students. 60% of our students are first generation. I'm first generation as well. And close to 80% of our students qualify for some form of financial aid at the state and federal levels. When I was an undergraduate, I was on a recipient of a Pell Grant A and B. And a lot of that, my past lived experiences as a student have helped form my positionality, if you will, on wanting to support the students that we serve here on campus. So some of the programs that I've uplifted include scholarship programs. As a donor, I've given my own private funds to Project Rebound, which is a program for formerly incarcerated students. And I've also supported Renaissance Scholars, which are former foster youth. And so what happens, some students have been incarcerated. They get out of incarceration. They're getting acclimated back to the campus life, and they might need uplift in areas on campus. With our foster youth, once you turn 18, you no longer qualify for foster youth. And so you need just some different areas of support and uplift. And so that I gravitate to that. Our students are beautiful. They never ask for a hand out, but I know they'll welcome a hand up. And so that's been a very easy fit for me on who I am and wanting to make everyone have a sense of belonging on our campus.
Love that idea of a hand up. We often hear about handouts, but you're actually the first person that I've heard say people will sometimes welcome a hand up. And it makes me think about how receiving a hand up helps somebody feel seen,
Absolutely.
that they matter.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's difficult, right? Especially if people are coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, such as being formerly incarcerated or the foster care system, having this idea of being seen. Have you had any first account firsthand accounts or stories that you witnessed of people being transformed through this idea of a hand up?
Absolutely. I have a student that I help mentor who was a recipient of a scholarship program I work with and called Bulldog Prize Fund. We started this scholarship in 2005 with two $50 gifts, and we've raised, I don't know, $650,000. We've given out $185,000 in scholarships. It's an endowed scholarship, and we're giving out $30,000 in the 2023-24 academic year. It's just
Wow.
miraculous, the support we've received from family, friends, and people that see a need for supporting our students. I had a so I had a student that I worked with that really took the minimum GPA is a 2.0. And there's two reasons for that. One is when the GPAs are high, they tend to get the people with those high GPAs, and salute them and I value them and I love them, but they seem to get a bigger piece of the pie, if you will. And
Mhm.
so I wasn't always the best student. And I think some people at the lower end of the GPA level might just need a little bit more opportunities. And so if our football players can play football at a 2.0, Hold Up and scholars can be a scholar at a 2.0. So I had a student 10, 15 years ago who had a challenge during the semester. And so we assessed the scholarships are split in two. You get half your scholarship in the fall, half in the spring. And in the spring, the student who had been an B student was down at the CD level. And I remember I called him into my office and I said, "What's going on?" And immediately I think he, he's has a substance abuse problem. I'm thinking, he's discovered uh, Jack Daniels, Jose Cuervo's, Jim Beam. That's where my brain
Right.
is, right? I turned 60 in 2 weeks. So that's where my brain is. And he says, "Peter, I'll tell you what happened. My mother had cancer. My
Oh,
father works in the field. My mother had cancer. She died. And I had to do all the arrangements. And I'm the oldest child. And my grades suffered. And I
mm,
felt, I started crying. My my assistant came in with a tissue and I said, I'm thinking these awful things are going on. And they were. His mother died, right? But I didn't expect to hear that. And so I just remember at graduation, his father came and thanked me and he wore his Sunday best to meet
wow.
come meet me. And it was cowboy boots and jeans, a plaid shirt and a cowboy hat. And his
Wow.
son told me later, "My dad really respects you. He wore his best." And I'll never forget. That was so special. Um, because he said I represent my wife who's no longer here.
That's an incredibly touching story. I also feel a little teary myself.
Oh my God, I'm crying. I've got another one too. About 5 years ago, I'm working with a student and we're gonna go meet for Chipotle. And we spent my office and we drive to Chipotle, but he wants to stop by his apartment and it's, 5, 6 o'clock at night. And so I pull over and he goes and as he's doing this transaction, I can see half a block down the street and I see them exchanging things. Well, of course, my mind at 55 years old thinks, oh my God, they're dealing drugs or something. What the hell are they doing? So I don't say anything. It's in the car. We go to Chipotle, have a great time. I come back to drop him off. And I said, this isn't my business, but I got to ask you, what was going in that situation before we went to dinner? What did I witness?
Right.
Well, I have my bedroom in my apartment on Airbnb, and I rented out my room for 3 nights on Airbnb to students from Sweden that are going up to Yosemite. So I'm going to make $150 this weekend. And I thought, wow, that's great. That's so resilient and entrepreneurship. And then I said, but wait a minute, where do you sleep? He says, I sleep on my couch. For the next 3 nights, I want to sleep on my couch. And I thought, wow. So here our student who's trying to make ends meet, who's on a scholarship, who's working on campus, is sleeping on the couch to give up his bed to make some money, complete his degree.
Wow, that just comes to show that we just do not know what is happening in people's lives, and we can't judge. Appearances are deceiving,
Yeah.
and I understand that because I've seen that myself.
Yeah.
I taught for 10 years, and during that time, I saw the full spectrum of
Yeah.
students who came from very affluent backgrounds and
Yeah.
students who came from economically challenged backgrounds. And I remember, in fact, one time actually working with a student who was a former gang member.
Oh,
I actually used to be scared of him, believe it or not, because, in the beginning, we we had some challenges because he struggled with authority figures.
mhm.
And after a while, he understood I had his best in mind. But I remember, and I'll never forget this day, that one day I saw him crying in a hallway, and this was not the normal tough guy I was used to. That was always
Hey,
giving me a hard time. And I asked him what was wrong. He just threw himself into my arms and cried and cried. It was violent cries. And eventually he said to me that his best friend had been shot and was dead, and his best friend was a gang member. It was something that touched me deeply because even though the night before his friend was shot and dead, he showed up and was at school the next day.
wow.
So we just don't know how what we do can help somebody.
Yeah. And I need to check myself before I wreck myself. I mean, with both of these situations, I'm a little embarrassed that I went to such a negative place. But that's my lived experience, the students that I see, the media, the movies, television, social media that you just always go to, oh, this is something bad. And if you get a phone call, I got a phone call from a city council member last week, 2 weeks ago. I got a text, can you talk? I need to talk to you. I said, oh crap, what did I do?
What
And,
did you do?
and so I said, yeah, you can call me. And so it was Fresno City Council Vice President Annalisa Pereira. And she goes, Peter, I need to talk to you. And I said, am I in trouble? She goes, actually, you're not. But right, my mind goes to the negative. And on Friday, I'm getting one of 3 Harvey Milk Community Leadership Awards from the
Wow.
city of Fresno. And I haven't even shared this with anyone until today, earlier this morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
And I'm just so
fabulous.
touched and so honored. But my brain goes to the negative. It's just terrible that I do that.
But you know what, Peter? May be a challenge that you do that. However, because you have this awareness, you're able to turn it around by being vulnerable and
Yeah,
share
that's true.
and share that with me and our audience, because the reality is we are all human. If we cannot embrace our humanity, our light and our darkness, our wonderful qualities and our not so wonderful qualities, then we're not being authentically ourselves. And when we have those moments of ding, 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 maybe I can be a little bit more positive. That speaks to a certain level of personal awareness.
Mhm.
And when we have that sense of awareness towards ourselves, we can have awareness towards other people and their needs. And that's what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're addressing people's needs by being aware of their needs. And to be human is to err, but it's also to be human, to be vulnerable and say, I'm willing to try
Right. I appreciate that.
to, you know, to be a little bit more positive. And we all have those moments, myself included. I can tell you countless of times where I've gone into the negatives, but I do my best to catch myself.
Yeah.
And I think that there's power in that awareness. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you're going to receive this award because
Thank you so much.
you genuinely care. And that's why I wanted to interview you, to speak with you and talk about your work, your advocacy, and your goals and how you're fulfilling them.
Thank you.
And with that in mind, what's the most important thing for you in terms of how you show up and try to assist students and other members of the Fresno community?
I've got a couple things that help guide me. I was born in South America, and
Mm.
so born in Bogota, Colombia. My birth name was Gustavo Beltran, and my mother was unmarried, and she abandoned me as an infant. And so I lived in an orphanage
Mm,
for the first 4 years. And then I was adopted by this beautiful family of Baptist missionaries, moved to the Seattle, Washington area. And my name was changed from Gustavo Beltran to Peter Robertson. So, I have to acknowledge I have white privilege passing last name. I have white privilege passing due to my last name, as well as to my light skin color. And so I became a citizen in 6th grade. So a lot of that has kind of shaped my life, where our family had a deep sense of faith. I was raised with a deep sense of faith, family, and friends. So it was not uncommon for us to go to church and people would give us vegetables and fruits from their garden. It was not uncommon for people to give us boxes of clothes that I would wear. And I had absolutely no shame in that. And I had friends that would say, "Oh, that used to be my shirt." I said, "Oh, well, I love it. It fits great. Thank you so much." I had no sense of that being not typical, because that's just how we were. The summer of 1969, I just turned 6, and I spent the summer in Head Start. And the woman that helped me, a tremendous friend of our family that was there for me, Aline Quall, with the Mount Vernon Unified School District, was my Head Start teacher. She taught me to read my name in English and write my name in English, because I'd never had preschool or kindergarten. And so I'm an English language learner, coming right into Head Start. going into first grade. Um, and so reflecting on this last year, I I look up Head Start and I find out that Head Start is a federally funded government program for families that live at or below the 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 designation poverty. And I called my mother and I said, "Mom, did you know that when I was in Head Start, that's for socially disadvantaged families?" She says, "Yeah, we were poor." I said, "We were poor?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "I had no idea we were poor because I had our faith, our family, and friends, you know."
Right.
But reflecting on that, one of the sayings I like is in Spanish is "Échale más agua a los frijoles," which means add more water to the beans. And for me, I look at it as you don't think you have a lot, but sometimes what we have is more than others. So we can share what we have. And if it's beans, we can have more water and share the beans we have and build bigger tables, not so much bigger walls.
And your adopted family build a bigger table,
They sure did. Yeah.
even though they had certain financial
Yeah.
challenges. It did not stop them from building a
Yeah.
bigger table, and it did not stop the members of your community
Yeah. And I think
from
that, my lived experiences, I've taken some of this lived experience to help guide me where I am today.
and
Where
that's
my motivation isn't financial. My motivation is giving and sharing and supporting. And that brings me tremendous amount of joy. A lot of the work that we do is as volunteers, we're doing it after hours. We're doing it on the weekends. We're doing it on the 4th of July, on Christmas Eve, on New Year's Day, when the whole world is celebrating. I'm volunteering because I'm not getting paid that day,
wow.
but I'm
And
volunteering because I want to, not because I have to.
and that's what makes it more powerful, and in spite of how busy you are with
Right,
your vested interest
right.
in being very community focused and helping people, you have carved out a path for yourself. You have 4 degrees, including a doctorate. You have a very well respected position within the university, and you keep on giving. In fact, that's how I met you.
I remember that.
I remember one day getting a random phone call from you saying, "Hi, can please speak with Dr. Urrutia?" And I said, "This is she." "Who's this?" You're like, "My name is Peter Robertson." It's like, "Hi, Peter, how can I help you?" And you said to me that you were inspired by some programming that I was bringing to Fresno State
I
when
remember that.
I was a center director there, and you said to me, "I wanna support that, and I want to help find people to support that because I
Yeah.
believe in it." And I said to myself, "Wow, who is this man?" Normally, I have to chase people for money. He's
Right.
offering to give me money.
My gosh. I remember that conversation and I got to meet you and the exhibit. It was beautiful. I've got the catalog for that exhibit sitting on my bookshelf about 3
Yes.
feet from me over here.
Yes, and it it was the last project I did at Fresno State
I
was
remember.
was bringing Nobody Promised You Tomorrow from the Brooklyn Museum to Fresno
Yes.
State, and all of the programming that went with it, and it was just such a joy, not only to have met you, and of course that you did contribute funds, but also the genuine care and interest in the conversations we were having
Yes.
around Nobody Promised You Tomorrow, and as well as the different people that were learning about the Stonewall Uprising that the exhibit commemorated. It was really quite
Yes.
meaningful to me to have met somebody that really genuinely cared. And
No,
I
that I remember that. That was the art 50 years after Stonewall.
yes.
And so the following year, this is the fun story. The following year, well, 2 things. You gave me a catalog, and I donated that catalog to the LGBTQ archives at the Fresno State Library. So there's a binder with that catalog and the article from the Fresno Bee and an article from the Collegian, and your name and the contacts and everyone is now in the permanent collection of the LGBTQ archives of Fresno State. So I want to applaud you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I did not know that. So
Yes,
it's
I donated it on your behalf.
oh, that's just
Actually, what did
lovely.
I do? Oh, I put it together. I gave it to Esteban Paraguerrero, and then he donated it on our behalf because I wanted him to be a part of it too. Or maybe
Yeah.
I did it. I can't remember. Anyways, it's there.
I'm just honored to be an ally, and
Yeah.
I'm honored to be a part of it.
And that is a 2020 state. The following spring, February of 2022, I find myself in New York,
I
and they have a
remember that. I
yes, and
remember you
yes.
messaged me that you were at the Judy Chicago
Yeah,
exhibit.
well, I went to see Andy Warhol Revelation.
Hmm.
And then when I get there, they have a permanent installation of Judy Chicago called The
The
Dinner Party.
yes,
So I went and saw that and Andy Warhol, and I end up in the gift shop.
and the book is there.
And on display in the bookshop is the catalog from the Fresno State exhibit. I was so impressed. That's the picture I took of you. I
Oh
said,
my.
and I tagged you, Nora Chapman, Munja, and Benjamin Kirk. I could not believe I'm in New York at the Brooklyn Museum, and they have for sale the catalog from your exhibit.
Well, I organized the catalog. I put it together in collaboration with the Brooklyn Museum, of course, but it was published through the university press, and
Yes.
it was a lot of work, and I'm very proud that it was there and that you saw it. So thank you for sharing with us and for the joy of reminiscing some highlights of when we were both colleagues at the university. Within the context of everything we've been talking about, one of the things that I find meaningful about your leadership is how you bring your heart into it and being heart centered. Is that something that you purposely think about doing, or you just show up with an open heart?
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. I think it's just instinct. It's who I am. I try very, very diligently to be authentic and sincere, to not be performative. I talk about this a lot with my number one thought partner on campus right now is Esteban Paratonero. And we always talk about leading with love and leading by example. And I can't ask someone to do something that I won't do. And if I lead with love, I'm going to be okay, even if it's critical or disruptive to social norms. And
Mm.
so for me, I think that's been guiding me recently. Well, probably longer than I realized, but I didn't know what to call it until recently. And a lot of
Mm.
that was through my doctoral program. One of the things I really liked at the time was there's a term called servant leadership.
Yes.
And we read a book from Bowman and Deal,
Mhm.
and it says the magic of that is love. And it said the gift of the servant leader is love. And that really spoke to me. So I've been using the leading with love since October 2019. The challenge now is, words matter. And so I don't know if I like the word servant anymore. So
Mm.
I'm going to update that to service leader. I'm going to provide service. And so I wrote a paper about that in my doctoral program about not using servant, but using service.
I like that. And it's really interesting when we take a moment and have a little bit of distance. You're able to see that most of your career, you have been leading with love.
Yeah.
That is why your programs, the funds that you've raised, the way you've been able to help people, because it's has come from that authentic place versus
Yeah.
performative. And I
Absolutely.
really feel that it's important to stress that word that you shared with us, not being performative. Because in my experience, people can feel when you're authentic and
Yeah.
when you're not.
I was at an event 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and there were two different leaders on campus. I met with just in passing with one at this event, and then a little bit later at at the same event, another campus leader. And both of them told me they appreciated or valued or noticed uh, my authenticity and sincerity. And
Mhm,
that made my day.
mm,
Because one of the things I've been real careful about is in the pronouns I use. And I always want to use we did this or together this happened. And I don't want to say I did this or
mhm,
this happened because of me. I'm always trying to take other people on this journey. And that's so important. It bothers me when I hear people say, I did this or this happened because of me. You know, you hear that a lot in election years, but I really shy away from that because I wouldn't be here without the support and guidance and patience of others that are my thought partners on projects, the people that
yeah,
because I can't do anything alone. Everything that we do, there's somebody that's involved. So,
right. And when we see the power of that, not only does it makes us want to be in collaborative thought partnerships, but it also pushes us to want to elevate others,
correct.
to help others rise
Yes,
because it's a we, not me endeavor
yes.
at the end of the day if we want to have a better world.
Mhm.
And that includes a better workplace.
I agree.
So, with that in mind, is there any advice that you can share based on your life experience and your professional experience with rising leaders?
I think there's a couple things I can say. One is surround yourself with people that will bring you up, not drag you down. I think that's probably the biggest wisdom I can give at almost 60. They can't see me. I'm going to say I'm a young 60, but I think surrounding yourself with people that love you. And I think surrounding yourself with the people that are doing good things, people that are leading by example, people that are leading with love, people that aren't talking about what they're going to do, but are just doing what needs to be done. I think that's really important. You know, you brought up the performative thing, and I'm really glad you said that because I see these videos on Facebook and on TikTok, and they'll show someone going up to an unhoused person and say, "Oh, it looks like you need a sleeping bag or a tent, and I'm going to give you that, and I'll give you a meal." And then they're filming this whole thing. And I said, you know what? You're not feeding an unhoused person. You're feeding your ego. And this is disgusting. You are compromising the relationship with a human being and you're exploiting them for your own gain. And if you
Mm,
really want to help someone, go buy them a meal and turn your damn camera off.
mm,
And you think, oh, this is such a heartfelt story. No, it's disgusting.
mm,
It's wrong. And people that like that, you you're not looking at what's going on here. A lot of the work I've done, just a very small scale. A lot of the work I do I do anonymously. And there's some things I've done on campus and with students and with whatever. And I say, don't use my name. If anyone asks, it's an anonymous donor, an anonymous sponsor, and they'll say, how can I help you? I said, one day, play it forward. When you have the capacity, play it forward, but do it anonymously and don't turn your camera on and don't make a video.
Wow. That is an incredibly powerful message and just makes me think about some ancient wisdom and sages and what they say in terms of charity.
Yeah. What was the other thing? The other thing I would say, don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Self-care is not selfish. And I had a situation, I got my bachelor's degree, Cindy, took 10 years. I was not the best student, 3 different schools, 2 different states, academic probation. I had to figure out how to study, and I got it done. And I went back and got a master's. And then I went back and got an MBA. And I'm 54 years old and I want to go back to school and get my 4th degree from Fresno State. I have 5 college degrees, including uh, an associate's degree from Skagit Valley College, but I want to go get my doctorate degree. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm 55 years old. This is a 3-year program, 60 units, 8 semesters. I'm not going to finish till I'm 58 years old. What am I doing? I talked to my beautiful spouse. We've been together 40 years this month in 3 weeks,
Congratulations.
in 2 more weeks.
Wow.
If I don't mess it up. And I said, Vic, I want to do this, but I'm worried that I won't finish it's going to take 3 years. I'm not going to finish till I'm 58. And you know what he said to me? He said, how old will you be, Peter, in 3 years if you don't go back to school? And that was my epiphany. I'll be 58 in 3 years, whether I go to school or not. That's the,
Exactly.
that's the nudge I needed. So that's what I did for 3 years.
Wow. And we're glad you did.
Oh, me too.
And
Change person.
and and yes, I think it's so important for us to keep on learning every day. At least I come to the conclusion that I don't really know very much. And I've read many books. I have countless of books on my shelves, and yet I realize that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. But, the more we learn, it opens up space for us to be a little bit more humble and to want to share what little we do know with the
Yeah.
world. And then by sharing that with the world, we don't know how we're impacting somebody
Yeah.
in
I
that
appreciate
world,
that.
but we are. I just want to say thank you for everything that you do,
Absolutely.
and you inspire me. I know without a doubt you
Oh, thank
are
you.
inspiring our listeners, and I'm looking forward to seeing what new things you will have learned in the next 3
Oh,
years.
thank you. I had a closing thought. I was at Fresno City College. I went to school there for 2 years. I didn't finish the degree there, but I went there for 2 years. And above the library, you walk into their library that was built almost 100 years ago,
Mhm.
and they have this Latin phrase above the doorway. And I've kind of adopted that as my motto. It's bonus intra, melior exe. And it's Latin. And what it means is bonus intra means enter good. And melior exe means exit improve or
Mm,
exit better. And that's what a library does for you. That's what an education does for you, a college or a university. But I also look at it as a double entendre where, Cindy, you came to Fresno State and you left Fresno State a better place for being here. I think our students do that, our faculty, definitely our staff members, and I'm hoping I'm doing the same thing. I'm entering Fresno State a good university, and I'm going to eat it just a little bit better for the next generation of our students.
Wow. Thank you. Really, thank you. And it's just beautiful. And I'm looking forward to having you back on Presence.
Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Presence. For more information on how you can create greater levels of impactful presence in your professional and personal life, visit www.cindyurrutia.com and follow me on social media. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Feel free to post a comment and we'll read it on the show.